Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Murder of the Gray State. But we are going to do a little bit of a discussion tonight. With me tonight, I have Catherine and I have Sophia. Thank you guys for
Hi,
joining me tonight.
thanks for having us.
Oh, of course, anytime.
Hello.
All right, so the big question here is I figure we might as well go over this. What exactly does prove David Crowley guilty, if there is anything really? Um, is there anything you guys can think of proves David Crowley guilty at all? I know I sure can't.
No, nothing.
Right, right. And I'm sure you guys get a lot of questions as well. Or well, not rather questions, but people claiming, such and such proves David Crowley guilty. Um, so, what are your guys' thoughts on that exactly?
Well, for me, it seems like the people who state that David is guilty, they're using a biased opinion, and I have yet to see any facts presented.
A fair point.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, let's just start off with just a few statements people like to go and say. So, the police reports state that David committed two murders and then killed himself. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Uh, I'm just saying that, well, I don't know. I mean, we've seen too much from the crime scene that disprove what the police reports state.
Right.
And I didn't even believe the narrative when I watched the documentary for the first time, and I hadn't even read the police reports at that time.
Very good point.
So,
What about you,
And what I
Catherine?
find, what I find interesting is that, and I've heard this stated so many times, is the actual reports don't tell you anything. They eventually, on I think maybe one or two, it'll say that they finally, all along it's, deaths and then homicides and then a possible murder suicide. And then, well, okay, finally one point says something that, okay, it's a murder suicide. But then they never give a reason as to why they came to that conclusion.
Right, right. And that's the thing is, I mean, all my research through it too. It's just exactly it. It's just there's nothing in there that really shows that the police are saying, yeah, David's guilty. They're just essentially saying, well, we got nobody else. He's dead. We're gonna just kind of go with this, but you know, we're not really sure. I mean, that's at least what I took from it.
Yeah, and
and I just,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Sophia.
no, I was just going to say, I just love how the police reports state that because there was no signs of struggle and no forced entry, then David's guilty.
Right.
But they didn't even bother to look at anything else. And by the way, they didn't need to have forced entry when the back door was broken.
If it was, even if some people try to say, well, it was only ajar, it was only open a little bit. Well, it doesn't matter. It was unlocked and it was open. So you don't, like Sophia was saying, anybody would, in their right mind, would go, well, you don't need forced entry.
Well, the other
And
interesting part.
certain people did admit that they knew that the back door had always been broken.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's actually the first I've even heard of that one.
Yeah, I believe that Greg can back that up too.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Well, there's one thing I noticed when looking, if we look at the police reports, I mean, we all know they got a lot of information in there, just like, it's almost like it's messed up. We had police statements, from family and friends, and there was a bunch of, it comes down to credibility. Um,
Hmm.
you know, it's one of those things that they prove that they're not credible individuals in there, because either they're blatantly lying or their memory is just that terrible. But you start cross-referencing these things with other documents we've got, and then all of a sudden, out of the police reports, these friends and family statements, a lot of them actually just kind of fall through the crack because they're just, it's not really something we can really use here. They're just kind of showing something opposite when we look through everything else.
Right. And that's the thing that I don't understand, because they did have, and they do have, the police, that is, the cell phone records. They have copies of, times when text messages were received and sent, and phone calls received and sent. And it wasn't that difficult to match up the people who were saying that they had contact with David and compare that with the actual records that they had in their own possession. And you clearly see nothing matches up. These people, and so right away, like you were saying, it comes down to credibility, which then shows they're not credible. So why are they then using this as a means to support the narrative?
Absolutely. And the other part I noticed too was they're pretty blunt when they say, "Oh, this is a text message." If there was anything about social media, they were very, very straightforward. This was a social media post, that blah, 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 blah. So they know the difference. So if
Yes.
David got a phone call or a text message, so they're saying that clearly it's a text message or it's a phone call, then they know the difference, obviously. So they're saying it's quite literally, this is a phone call or this is a text message that they've got access to. But we look through the phone records and there's nothing there. There was no text message from Chris Peck. When it says Mason Hendricks had called David they talked on the phone, unless Mason Hendricks, but even then, you look at the phone records when it comes to December, was David really talking to a whole lot of people? Not really. So did he actually speak to David on the phone? The answer's looking like a no, because if you go off their records, there's nothing there to even prove that Mason Hendricks actually spoke with David. So
Exactly.
there's more there too. So, all right. Well, I mean, yeah. So we can kind of see that the police reports are just kind of hokey.
They are.
Yeah. So we'll get the next question here.
Well, actually, I was going to say something in regards to that.
Sure.
There are some people that have made excuses saying that, oh, they must have downloaded free calling apps onto their phone. And I'm like, what's the point of that? I mean, they could have done Wi-Fi calling from their home with AT&T and their iPhones.
Right.
They could have had free long-distance call through that. They could have had it through Facebook, too, through Messenger. I mean, what is the point of downloading extra apps on a phone that you pay for?
Right.
I mean, they're not trying to hide anything from anybody else. Nobody else is paying their bill.
Absolutely. Well, another thing too is with those blacklight reports. Also, they were also giving us a lot of insight on what exactly they were using. So, I mean, we didn't see anything with any kind of free phone apps or any of this kind of stuff, which that would have shown up.
WhatsApp on there?
Which one?
WhatsApp?
Yeah, the WhatsApp.
Was that on the blacklight?
I believe so.
I need to go back and double check on that.
Fair enough. All right. So you guys ready for the next one, or do you want to just? Speaking of,
no,
okay.
that's fine.
Perfect. All right. So the next one is David was drunk, and I know I just put but or high, and eventually just snapped. What's your guys' takeaway on that one?
We're both going to say the same thing. His toxicology reports were clean. He was not, he was not high.
Yeah, and plus, if you look at the journal, I mean, he's talking about drinking back in the summer and how he doesn't like how it makes him feel. He said the same thing about the mushrooms and that he was quitting the pot. I don't think he smoked it after early fall, I think, what he was talking about in his journal. So,
right.
I mean, and you just don't see that proof. You see the pot there on the dresser, but it wasn't being smoked at the time. The canister was in the bathroom, all cleaned out and everything. Is not showing up in their system, and it would have. So I just don't see that at all. I mean, you would have seen mention of the alcoholic beverages in the house if they had been in the house. I've seen other police reports from Minnesota that state that.
Absolutely.
And so I'm just not buying it. They took out the medications from the drawer, they put it there. I think the only reason why we didn't get an actual photo of the medications is because HIPAA
Right.
and privacy. And I'm okay with that.
Right.
I don't want to step that boundary, but I mean, if there had been alcohol, I'm pretty sure we would have seen photos because that would have been proof, more
Right.
proof for them.
Right, and plus with the toxicology also showing, what they showed. I mean, he obviously wasn't high, nor was Kamel. All they
Mhm.
showed that she had like an aspirin or an ibuprofen in her system, and that was for pain relief, which we already knew she had. I believe it was wasn't it like lower back or something like this problems? It was some like arthritis or something, but she had pain. She was using that for pain relief, and I mean it makes sense. I mean.
Well, and then when you're reading through the journal, yes, at the beginning, because he had only just, I think he stated he smoked pot for the first time when he was 28, and they
Mhm.
were, what, 29 when they died? 28, almost 20. So
Mhm.
it's not like he was a dope head. But what I found interesting is as you're reading it and you're going toward the end, just not too long before the last entry, he actually states that he's going to leave this stuff alone because it messes with him too much. And he didn't like what one of the times, I think it was the stuff, please don't quote me, but I think I remember it this way, that something he'd gotten from Chris during the summer. So this was earlier. And it did something and he didn't like what it did to them. It messed with him so bad it scared him. And so he's like, I think I'm gonna just kind of lay off of this stuff. And
Mhm.
that's why I
Mhm.
find it really interesting how all of a sudden Chris is like, oh yeah, he's, saying he wants to come get some and there's stuff on the dresser, but yet his toxicology is clean. Those are they're opposites.
Right. It almost seems like that was planted at that point then. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing is, if you look at
Yeah.
it too, it looks a little dry. And I
Yes.
know, I mean,
Everybody's made a comment
right,
about
it's
that.
pretty dry. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, we'd have to look at, okay, well, how long does it take to go and dry marijuana out, like that, to the extent that that was dried out. That was like, that looked like that was like literally like brittle. It was starting to get a little brittle. So if that's getting a little brittle, it's not really, that's no good. So I guess we'd have to go and talk to somebody that connoisseur of marijuana, I suppose. Luckily, I'm in Oregon, so there's a lot of people here.
Well, and me being in Colorado, trust me, I had no problem showing that photo to so many people. I
Right?
mean, I don't care if people smoke it. I don't personally, but I don't care if people do, and I know a lot of people that do.
Right?
And I showed them the photo, and every single one was like, "We would never do that. That's not how. No, that's not right." And they didn't know. I'm just showing them photo and said, "Okay, tell me what you see in this photo, and is this something that you would have in your house?" That's all I said.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all like, "No."
Right? And so it has to. I mean, the thing is, I mean, is I don't know if I really fully recall the whole Chris Peck thing with the pot, but I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about on that, but I know there's something there too. Is I just don't. And once again, I don't want to be quoted either, but I'm pretty sure there's something there to that extent. What you were saying
Yeah, I
about.
thought he had said he picked it up from Chris Peck, but that's what I'm saying. Don't quote me on that part because I'm
Right.
not 100% sure. But he did state whatever that he and Kamel had smoked had really messed with him, and he did not like it. It
Right.
like almost the feeling that was coming through the writing was it scared him. So he's like, okay, I'm backing off. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Which
This is not okay.
which that begs the question: was that laced then? As if he had some,
Right.
as if
That
he's
was
got
my
some
thought.
laced stuff. Not to mention, we had that. What was that? Was it on the Gray Sage podcast? We had the one caller discussing about the trafficking network that goes through that area, So it's like, okay, well, I mean, that, what's his face isn't too far off from there. So I mean, wouldn't be outside the realm of, was he involved with this? Not David, but Peck. But I mean, especially as he's dealing in that state, it's not legal at that point, especially. So
Right.
we're looking at what else is going on here potentially. And if we don't have any of the text messages showing that David did actually text him and had this discussion. I know there's different different things that have surfaced. I can't really say whether they're true or false at this point, but there's different things that have surfaced trying to state that, oh well, this is proof that Chris Peck had texted him. But the thing is, end of the day, we got the phone records. We can see there's a gap, and there's nothing on the 19th. So, and especially not from Chris Peck. There's nothing there.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I don't see WhatsApp on either blacklight report.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, and it had connected to his iPhone, so it would have shown.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it wasn't. It might not have been used. So I mean, I don't know the full extent of, like, was it everything that was on their phone that they showed off, like all the apps? I'm sure there was a ton of apps on there. Most people usually have a ton of apps on their phone, anyways. But so are they only showing the ones that were in use within a certain time period? Are they showing all the apps in general? That'd be my question for the
Not
ABPD.
exactly sure. I'm still looking through it, but I'm not exactly sure.
You're
I
good.
did find something that goes with this call tonight,
Hey, Greg, how's it going?
so I'll go over it.
I sent you the link, so you are welcome to join in if you'd like.
And I just wanted to let you guys know, I mean, the lunar eclipse is actually happening faster than what they told us to. I just looked outside, and it's almost complete, but it hasn't started to change color. So if I drop out, that's where I'm at.
Oh, I get you.
I'm outside looking.
Yeah, I'll probably see if my wife can at least go and take a video or some pictures or something. But yeah, no, it's definitely, this is a weird part of the case, because there's a lot of people there. This has been claimed by several people that David was, either drunk or high, because they like to mention the absinthe. And even then, I still think some of his Facebook posts, absinthe and, all his little comments about that, they may not actually have been about absinthe. It could have actually just been about, just maybe it was some kind of a quote he had. Maybe it was some kind of an experience he's had. It was kind of just comparing it. I'm not fully convinced that he was really actively drinking absinthe. So.
Yeah, and the whole,
Okay.
to go to the snapped part of all of this, and, it's like, people are using this term like they hear it on TV and they watch these movies. People all of a sudden they're great and happy, and then boom, they become serial killers.
Right.
No, I mean, in real life, that's not how it works.
Right.
In there really is no such thing as a snap. You have somebody who's either abusive, and there are always signs that they're going to do something. Okay, the majority of the time, that they're capable of doing something brutal.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to ever hear of a guy or even a woman that loves their family, does everything for them, treats them with respect and honors them, and will stand up and protect them, and then all of a sudden go home and just start killing everybody. The whole snapped thing needs to just be dropped out of the vocabulary. It doesn't fit.
Right.
And it doesn't exist. Seriously, in the psychological world, there is no such thing as snapped.
Right. You'll see the build up and all this, and you'll see how it starts to kind of just the build up, if you will.
Correct.
And even if you don't see it, and they're very good at hiding it, you should still be seeing some shifts in personality at least. Maybe they're becoming a lot more like they're getting a lot more inward. They're just kind of keeping themselves a little bit more. Maybe they're being a lot more. Focused on some project they might be working on, something like this. They're trying to go and just kind of internalize it. That kind of thing. That's pretty typical. But as for the whole, okay, just one moment, he's great, and then just, I'm gonna go do this now. With no sign, no. Camille would have known something was up. And especially with how well their relationship worked, she would have been
Right.
talking them through it. They would have been talking things out. We get to see this the journal too. We get to see lots and lots of proof of their relationship and how things like their dynamic of the relationship actually worked out.
And that, now that you bring that up, and I think I spoke to Sophia about this before, what surprised me about
Hmm.
their relationship dynamics was it really was not David who was the alpha in the relationship. It truly was Camille, and Camille kind of ruled the roost. And David is like, okay, he would do anything. Okay, she got upset. What am I going to do? I'm in the doghouse. Oh, great. Her family's making her upset. I want to make her happy, but I can't go talk to her because she's going to, I don't want her to yell at me. And so the whole dynamic is almost completely reversed from what you're hearing.
See, to me, I mean, I saw it a little different. I mean, for the most part, I saw that she was very much, she when she had the reins, she had the reins. And
Yeah,
there was
she was
times where
not a
David,
wallflower.
right, they were very much in a lot of things together. That's why I think where Catherine, when she brought that up, saying no, there's no way David would have just done this on his own. This would have had to have been a mutual decision, and that's where I think that kind of comes from. Is we know that Catherine and Camille had talked prior to finding the bodies. It was a while, but they actually had spoken. I think it was I want to say it was October. As far as October, it was either October and November was the big one where they had a ton of calls. But yeah, there was a few calls there where I don't think it appeared on voicemail. I think it was like 6 seconds came in and then it was up. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But
Well,
they
I
they
mean,
had
the
talked.
the records do show clearly that Kate had called, almost hounded them
Hmm.
both. So
Right.
she made a lot of phone calls.
Right. And I mean, it was like you got to see these times where she would just hound them,
Uh-huh.
and there was times where it was like, they would call and, or she would call and they would talk and it wasn't a big deal, but, where we see this big shift with the family dynamic ends up being in August anyways. So like the August, September time, that's where we really start seeing a shift, and all this. So I mean, it's like when you got to see the whole dynamic between those two, it's like she would have known. They would have been talking things through. So I tend to kind of go the route of Kate Crowley, saying there's no way David would have done this unless Camilla had talked about this. And that kind of, for me, that kind of leads into that rapture thing that that A. Gray State brought up, which is BS. I mean, I know we've talked about that before, where we talked about the audio. It was cut to all hell. They
Right.
just took what they wanted to make Kamel seem crazy. When really, what they were talking about, they were very, very philosophical, and we can see this through his journal posts. You get to see this through even like some of her posts she had made, and how she would what from the found foot or not found footage, but the footage we got and all this. She's philosophical. Especially the way David spoke with her or spoke about her in his journal, kind of showed she was more kind of like she was a thinker. So she's
Yeah,
talking
and
about rapture. There's a
extremely,
right.
yeah, she was an extremely intelligent woman.
Hmm.
And, and also you compare her and her personality, and you see that not only in the videos, but you see it in how David talks about her.
Oh yeah.
In someone who is being abused or pushed around at home, they're not vocal like she is. I mean, if that were the case, the situation would be so volatile that everybody would know about it.
Right.
And there would be signs of violence prior. But instead, he lets her be her. Not saying he liked it, you know what I'm saying? Because nobody always likes everybody who's super strong-willed or personality. But when she would get like that, he would just find a way to, okay, either backed off or he wanted to find a way to talk to her to make it better.
Right.
And that's not someone who's abusive, and that's not somebody who's going to turn around and, well, as we've stated, snap just doesn't happen. But the old, I'm going to snap and be mad.
Right. Right. Well, and I mean, look, actually, let me switch to a different slide because we can actually get right into the abuse one. Let me get right into that. Let's see.
And just real quick, I looked at Blacklight 5,
Mm-hmm.
that actually covers all the apps that had been opened um, in the recent past
Right. So it's
for
not
the
going to necessarily cover
iPhone.
everything.
And it's, I mean, you should look at it.
Mm-hmm.
There's pages of it,
I'm going to have to definitely take a
and
look at it
it's
again.
not showing up at all. So whoever is claiming the whole WhatsApp thingy is straight up not telling the truth.
Right. I
So
agree.
they didn't use that to make extra calls.
Makes sense. Well, I mean, you just proved it
Anyway,
right there.
yep. Because he used it to update his iPhone, and then as he was updating it, it has the day one log, Pandora, Apple, uh, Wells Fargo banking, Roam data, all kinds of things. IKEA,
But you got to ask yourself, too,
leasing.
you know, if somebody is planning on killing their family and then killing themselves, are they really going to care about updating their phone? I mean, really? Really?
Oh,
You know, it doesn't make any sense. It's like,
not at
oh, I
all.
got, you know, this is this phone that's apparently it's got blood all over it. We're gonna, you know, this is gonna be something I want to make sure this is updated for the police when they get this. You know, it's that way everything is just tip top shape for them. Nobody does that. Nobody.
Right. And like Sophia pointed out, is that and not only that is the updating, but oh, so he's going to wipe all of his prints and DNA off of the phone and only put his wife's blood on it? Does that
Right.
make sense?
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't make
It
sense
makes
at all.
zero sense at all. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So this next one, well, you know, we're just kind of segue into this. Another claim is David is abusive, so therefore he's guilty. So laughable. So what do you guys think?
Where's the proof of that?
Right? Absolutely.
If there was any proof, the police would have written it down in the reports.
Right. And there would have been, again, like we stated before, there would have been evidence of the abuse.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
there I mean, when somebody psychologically abuses you, whoever is being abused, you show it. No matter how much you try to hide, it's noticeable. And people, you know, okay, for example, one of the people who was, I think it was on the stupid sloppumentary that had interviewed somebody, and one of Kamel's quote unquote workers or friends or something, and they were blaming David for Kamel quitting her job. Oh, well, he did this, and so she quit. And then when you're reading the journal, you find out that took David by surprise.
Right.
He was
Mm-hmm.
like, uh-oh, she's gonna quit her job, but I'm gonna support her. Okay. Whoa. He didn't know she was gonna do that.
Yeah. I mean, if
And
anything, I
so
think he was proud of her.
yeah, and he was gonna back her no matter what. And so I'm like going, you know, so they twist it. They take something from somebody who sees something because they don't understand what they're looking at. And they didn't understand that Kamel was actually frustrated with her coworkers because how they were being treated and
Mm-hmm.
how they were being paid by the company. So they saw that as, oh, it must be David's fault, when in reality she was angry at the employer and angry at her coworkers for not having the guts to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. And so she's like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm going to quit. And David's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm here for you. I'll do what you need.
Right.
Where's
Yeah,
the
because
abuse?
she
Exactly.
told him before she went to work that morning
Right.
that she was quitting, and he was just shocked by it. So if this was his idea, why would he be shocked?
Yeah. Why would he be
And why would
abusive?
he be concerned about supporting them?
Right.
Yeah, his comments would be, yeah, it's about time. You know, I told her these no good for nothings, but that's not what he says.
Well, and even then, if he was abusive, he would be using this as a way to torment her potentially. You know, oh,
Right.
you did this. Oh, such and such is a loser, or whatever. You know, all this kind of stuff. You could be saying all sorts of things like that. But no, he's there saying, all right, all right, wasn't expecting that, but hey, I got you on this. We're gonna go and we're gonna get through this.
Right.
But he also goes on. I'm not sure if it was in that entry or a later entry where he talked about, or maybe it was even before, where he talked about her job and just kind of like oh man, these guys they're kind of scuzzy. They're slime balls.
Yep.
So, the thing is they even admit in the documentary with Heidi Lish, I believe it was, and I believe it's also in the police reports too, that they didn't know David. So now they're just going to blame him? That doesn't seem very fair at all.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, just
And then
messed
they
up.
were all too willing just to accept whatever was said, especially the Heidi person.
Right.
On that sloppumentary, and I feel so bad for my friend. That was the kind of what came across, and I'm sitting there going, really? Did you look at anything? Have you bothered to pay attention? But no, she was so easily manipulated and malleable. And maybe, okay, for a benefit of the doubt, maybe they were recording this when her loss was still fresh and she
Mhm.
couldn't really deal with anything. That's a possibility. But still, at the same time, if that were my friend, I would be all over that. I'd be like, oh, no, 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 I'm going to be reading up on this. Did he really do this? Because if he did this, I'm going to be putting this guy on blast. But if he
Right.
hasn't, then I'm going to say, who really did it?
Absolutely.
I don't know. I found her story hard to buy.
I agree.
Like,
I did
she
too.
wasn't believable.
Yep.
Well, especially this is the part I found very interesting, is how often she was calling Kamel. I mean, it was almost like that obsessive friend. I think people that have got a lot of friends, they've got that one obsessive friend that just insists. They call every day, several times a day.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, come on, give it a break. Because Kamel wasn't even answering most of the phone calls. They would go to voicemail if she even left it for voicemail. So, she would text her repeatedly, and there was times Kamel wasn't even really responding.
Yeah, and so what, how I see this when I look at the dynamics of both David and Camille and their relationships with people who at one point were their friends, is that they grew beyond what these people were willing to do. These people that used to be their friends, they got stuck and they wouldn't mature, they wouldn't learn, they wouldn't change. And David and Camille were always, from what I see, and I could be wrong, but it's like they wanted to always look for something better, do better, be better, and prepare for something other than just going with the flow.
Absolutely. Well, that's why I think like people like Danny August Mason, Joseph Seaton, all this, they when they're claiming, oh well, David was more like the New Agey thing. They didn't really know even the religion or the faith that David and Camille had. They didn't know anything about them. They didn't know their friend or their alleged friend. Not to mention, you go over the journals and you start seeing this. Like with David, he mentions Joseph Seaton and Danny August Mason, Sean Wright, and Adam Shambor. Pretty consistently, like, yeah, not really a big fan of these guys, but he also does at one point straight up just says, Joe was just kind of done with him anyways. But yeah, this is supposed to be on the, according to A. Grace State, this is one of David's close friends. This is
and
Did you notice how angry he was in the documentary?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Joseph?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm wondering if he read the journal before that and
I hope he
was
did.
pretty PO'd about it because
Oh man, David doesn't like me.
Well,
I mean, you could literally see that vein popping out of his neck.
Right.
That's how angry he was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
And
wow.
David didn't mince words in his journal. He said exactly how he felt about all of them. They were leeches. They were sucking his soul dry. And he's like, no, you guys aren't, you're not giving anything in return. You're take. And so he's like, no, I have to cut you out. I'm cutting you all out of our lives because if it's not gonna be an equal give and take, and all you want to do is take and ride on my coattails and say, oh, I'll do this job if you pay me $50,000 a year. I mean, come on, really? So they're so, I don't know what the word is, but they couldn't even see that they were a leech. They truly convince themselves and try to convince everybody, oh no, we're the best friend. He loved us. We loved him. Well,
Right.
I don't think go back and read what he said about you. He didn't love you.
Right, not at all. At one point I know he does say that they're good people, but they're just essentially they're just like they're not for them. You know, they need to move past
Yeah.
this. They mention in the journal, or he mentions very literally, they're going to be moving to California, and they're going to make some new friends there. They're going to start their life fresh there, which
Yep.
that says a lot right there. You know, that David and Camille, that was their plan. Why was Camille, cashing in her retirement? That's not somebody that, is going into a pack theory that they're going to, kill themselves, and their family. That they don't need money. Where they're going. At that point, they don't need that. Once you're
Right.
dead, you're dead. You don't need the money. Well, it depends, I guess, on if you look at like the older religions, I suppose. But but that's coins then, not
Yeah.
that dollar bill.
And they
So
were so delusional that they in not only in the slappumentary, but even in some of their conversations with us, they were like, "Oh no, they're going places with David. They were gonna be there. They were his right hand man."
right,
And we're all like going, no, you weren't.
right,
You
yeah,
know? He had you
yeah.
out for a reason. He wasn't even talking to you for months, and he was. I don't know. It boggles my mind.
Well, I know I recently did something on the contract too. Is I know that's two of the friends basically said, "Oh, is that I think it was even more than that. It was actually even saying that that the contract was dead and all this." And we'll move right into that slide next. Actually, might as well. Let's just go in there. So since we're talking about the
Okay,
friends,
and I have information on this.
perfect.
It's in the black light reports.
All right, let me go in. If I can see this, let's see. PTSD, gray state, took him to a dark place. No. Let's see. Where was it? Oh, here it is. Okay. All right, so they're saying that David was spiraling out of control after he walked away from the Meg offer. I laughed my my butt off on this one a lot because we can prove without a doubt he wasn't walking away from that offer at all. He was waiting. He was waiting on one person, just one person, and then they were going to be able to go and continue this on.
Yep. Yep.
And here in black light number 5,
Mm-hmm.
the recent documents that he had been opening up before he died. 2014 from July 25th, Gray State Deal Memo. GSTR Co-Production Agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Final Clean GS FMF Change Contract. From May 08-13, BGS FMF Change Contract. And then the very last one, besides Mythos, was Hothead Gray State Danny Mason Agreement.
Ah, see now that's something that's something we need right now. Is that fully proves? I mean, that goes back on the whole motive and all this, but that's the part that I find very interesting because we're not seeing any evidence he was spiraling out of control. And like I was saying earlier, he didn't walk away from the Meg offer at all. And like you were even proving right there, did not walk away. He was waiting on Danny August Mason to sign his little, I don't know what the agreement was called. Basically, the agreement where he's getting more or less kicked off the island. And we know that between him and Gleason, they talked about how Mitch Heil had already signed his. Which means that goes back, because that was in October, so that we go back to that meeting that Mitch Heil had with David. That's probably what happened right there. At least I would assume that he probably signed it right there, and David, whisked that off to Gleason, but they were just waiting on Danny August Mason. But now that we know that there's that other part there with the Hothead Productions deal between them and Danny August Mason, it begs the question, why was he lying? He was only supposed to be an actor, right?
Yeah. Not a fan.
Right. I mean, especially considering.
That was the most uncomfortable interview to watch with that one guy, Ben Swan.
Oh yeah.
That was so uncomfortable to watch.
Right. Well, it's even more
And
so
he's
after you
talking
watch it.
about the Great State Universe at that time and everything.
I mean, it's hard to watch right now, even just because everything we've got. Watching that now is just like, oh man, this guy was blatantly lying, it looks like.
And David kept putting him in his place because he would try to call it his, and David be like, mine, my Great State. I'm the one who did this work on that. And you're like going, and then you could see Danny kind of seething. So when he'd get a chance, he'd try to call dibs on it, and David would turn around, just go, nope.
Right.
No, buddy, you're not going to take this from me.
Well, the other thing was that you guys have seen the Sean Wright interview with those two, right?
Yeah, it was a long time. Yes, I did see it once.
That one, I know I did a reaction video, well, a reaction stream to it. I couldn't show the video for obvious reasons, but I was reacting to it, and it was hilarious. David would just give him a look, and he would back down. It was like, oh, we know who the alpha is here, guys.
Oh, yeah.
This guy was just like, no, don't even try this. Or even the Alex Jones interview, same thing. Danny August Mason's trying to say something, and David would just give him a look, and he would just kind of just back off. It's like, oh. So, I mean, this is where it all comes down to. It's just like, so I think more or less this proves that this little guy was definitely trying to, he was lying to the police, because we know that those happened before. So if the police, they didn't look into that, I mean, it makes sense why they didn't. I mean, I can understand where they're coming from when it comes to that, but it's just a bit ridiculous because there's so much proof proving Danny August Mason lied. Just based on that stuff. If you go off just the police reports alone, I can see where the police can come from and say, oh, okay, well, maybe it was just bad memory. Not a big deal. Kind of just whatever. But obviously they didn't go and really look into his story.
He wasn't the only one lying to the police, unfortunately.
Yeah, a good portion of his so-called friends were. And family.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but when I look at all of this, the one true friend that I see that David did have wasn't Mitch Heil. Mitch Heil truly, I mean, not to say he really liked everything David did, and he kind of felt a little slighted, but he's like, okay, hey, he's my friend, and I'm going to support him in what he needs to be successful. And that's what a friend does. A friend will support you. These other people kept trying to take and ride and wanted David to be successful so they then could gain monetarily from it. That's
100%.
not a friend.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Mitch Heil was really his only friend.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be back. I'm going to go look outside again because it's getting really pretty.
Sure.
Okay. I can't see where I am.
Yeah, it's too cloudy over here. I can't see anything.
It's not quite cloudy. It's just I have some tall buildings around me that's blocking it. So
Gotcha.
it's like, darn.
At least you got the buildings. Mine's just clouds, but I got Oregon to thank for that one. Thank you, Oregon. Oh, lovely.
Usually it is clouds, honestly. I mean,
Right.
I have to go on Facebook and take a look because I feel like I'm missing out.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, it's just really interesting because of all the documents he was looking at.
Right.
It's like, wow, okay. I mean, if it was a dead deal, why would he be looking at those contracts?
It makes no sense. And that's just it. So there's people that were saying this. You've got Sean Wright. That's why I've been mentioning for 2 weeks now, actually. Well, a month, not a month, but about 2 weeks or so. Sean Wright is the next one I'm doing after the contract. And the reason being is because he talks specifically about the contract like 3 times. He says it was not a $300 million deal. Okay, well, sure, we know that. We can prove that that's not true. It could have led up eventually to get up pretty high, but I mean, 300 mil, I don't see it. But it was worth some money, and it was worth David actually prepping to go to California with his family, and we could see that's what he was doing.
And the whole thing is we do know according to the contract that it was funded for $30 million, but that wasn't going to be what David was going to get. That's what they were going to use to fund that whole entire whatever they had planned for the season or for how many shows it was going to be. But the point was that it looked pretty good that whatever they were going to do, they were going to pick it up again. Like, say if it was going to be, seasons type thing, there'll be more than just one season. There could be 2 or 3 seasons of whatever it was that they were going to do. So it had the potential to really, really rake in bucks. Plus, it was going to open the door.
Yeah, and then think about all the royalties too.
Right.
Well, and
So,
the
I
thing
mean, they
is
usually don't sell their movies or their scripts just for that initial paycheck. They do it for the royalties too.
Right, the royalties and then the merchandise and books and everything. Then syndication. I mean, it would have been huge.
Hmm.
absolutely. I mean, we were looking at. I mean, when it came down to it, it was something like I think $35,000 or something like this, just for like the initial, and it was just I believe it was on option B, which they were still. I mean, if you read, it was option A and option B. I think 30,000 was the floor for option A, but it could go up higher. And option B was just the flat. Here's $35,000, and that's just for David just to get optioned. And then after that, then you've of course he's got all sorts of other things he can make money off of. And all he had to do is just a lot of that stuff just had to kind of be run by the mics. That's all it had to be done. And as long as they A-okayed it, it's good to go. But even then, anything having to do with the script, the story, anything, that was also going to be ran by David as well. So very, very
You know,
interesting
I was
because mhm,
I was just thinking about this, but David might have been looking at other offers in Hollywood when he was there with Ken Mel, but this is the one contract he came home with. Why would he walk away from that?
right.
And do you really think that the mics would have let him just walk away without saying, without trying to sweeten the deal a little bit more?
Yeah, because
No.
I'm
that would have
pretty
been
sure they saw the.
right. You're right. That would have been tons of money in their pocket. They're not going to probably let that go right away.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'll
Yep.
be right back. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I just don't see him. I don't know why he wrote what he did in his journal, if he did. These journals are, people can edit them very easily. I
Well,
mean, all you
and
have
what
to
are
do
you
is just download
okay?
it.
What are you referring
Hmm?
to that he wrote? Because I don't recall or remember reading anything negative about his experience with the movie deal.
He didn't write. Oh, actually, he didn't write it in the journal. He supposedly wrote it to his dad that he walked away from the deal, but we have no proof of this. We just have
Right.
it in the timeline.
Right, because that was one of the first things we were checking when we got the phone records, is we were looking for those phone calls and those text messages, and nothing went through. So, and I am not calling Dan Senior a liar. I'm just wondering, did somebody else route something through a number, making it look like it came from David's phone? I mean, I put nothing past these people. So here, David's dad could be thinking that's what happened, when in reality the evidence and the phone records show it didn't.
You know, and then on top of that, I mean, the journal ends like a day or two before this supposedly happened, conveniently. So
Yeah,
we don't even have David's take on it. Up until then, he's super excited about the deal,
yeah,
and he's anxiously waiting for the mics to contact him because he just sent that script off.
yeah. So if he was going to walk away, why would he keep writing and rewriting and then say, you know what, I can finally put this to bed because now it's done and now I can start something else? Well, he couldn't start something else if he walked away, because he would have to still keep pitching it. He would have to still keep writing proposals and
Right.
doing these boards. So it's like, how could he have walked away?
Yeah. Well, and even
Yeah,
then,
it just.
there's a lot going with the script and with that deal he had. I think, and I mean, he even admitted he was optioned with quite a few different studios. So if he was optioned with a few studios, he chose the Megs, obviously, or with the mics. For him choosing the mics, especially a new start, or almost like a startup, if you will, they were offering him a better deal, or he was trying to avoid those other studios because they wanted more control. I think it's more or less probably control is what it came down to, though.
Yeah, and I just don't see what people are saying happened actually happening. I think that this is just another thing,
Right.
another disinformation or red herring or whatever you want to call it to make yourself feel better.
Right.
Sorry. That's just
100%.
how I feel at this point.
Well, I mean, since we're on the topic also of script, I mean, we've got this here too. The Gray State script put David in a dark place. You guys got any thoughts on that one?
Oh,
This is laughable.
Right? Right?
Has anybody read the newest script? The one
Oh,
that
yeah.
he supposedly sent out? I mean, I'm asking the audience. I know you guys have. I was like, has the audience ever read the 2014 script? Okay, well, it's not dark.
Right.
It's not like the trailer at all.
No, not at all. It's see, the thing is if they were to go and see the 2013 script, then you compare that, you know, the one where Danny August Mason was heavily involved, the only one where John Waynick was actually in, because he wasn't involved in the newer script. So that's the other funny part about that, because it was that offer that David basically said. He's like, I'm willing to go and give you, you know, we'll talk about, you know, like a producer credit, and you'll be able to act in the John Waynick role. Funny, because John Waynick wasn't even in there, so he obviously didn't know that at the time. So this kind of just proves that at least Danny August Mason had no idea that John Waynick wasn't actually in the newer script. He kept thinking it was the older script. So that's where that all goes. That's hilarious, because the new script, it's the character of Daniel Walker that's like very much like, he's a badass. I mean, that's the best way I could describe it. Daniel Walker was an absolute badass in that story, but he was, you know, he was a lot more relatable than the other Daniel Nicosi was. Going down the 2013 script, with that, I can understand when that wouldn't be in dark, but at the same time, I know we've discussed this on my stream and on the podcast before as well, that when it came to the older script, it was almost like there was like 2-3 people writing that one, which, well, different writing styles, they're all peeking through.
The first one's clearer. It's not the same voice. It's not the same writing style.
Right. You know, and
But,
we know.
you know, to
I
go
am
back.
glad.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was
No,
just
I
going
was
to
just gonna.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, so you go.
You go first.
No, you go first.
No, I was just gonna say that I was glad that he took that guillotine scene out of the script, because that is the one thing that has given me nightmares.
Right.
Is that guillotine scene?
But it was
Where it was
supposed
the
to. I
10.
thought it was pretty cool.
Oh, right.
I'm not one for stuff like that. I love a great action movie and everything, but that just, after reading about the guillotines and Obamacare and everything, that just was a little too close to home.
Right. Well, I honestly, that's where
And
I
maybe
kind of
that's
feel he took
supposed
it from.
to.
Yeah, I think that's where he got
was
it from.
supposed to. I'm sorry, William.
I
what?
mean,
I think that's where he actually got it from, was pulling directly from what they had found. All the
Correct.
different, you know, like for instance, like if I'm not mistaken, I could have sworn they also mentioned, at least in like kind of a descriptor about the black coffins. I could have sworn they mentioned that. But I mean, they mentioned all sorts of different things that it was very obvious. You know, he had been listening to what Alex Jones had said. He probably did some research on what Alex Jones had said. Because that was the other change we also got to see, is there was no InfoWars sticker on the car. There was no Alex Jones like references in the newer script. He was completely cut out.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is, you know, here where it says the Gray State script put David in a dark place. Well, if he was in such a dark place, why was he starting to write new scripts for new movies, and he was really excited that he could expand his creativity? Oh my
Right.
God, he was so dark. No, he was writing. He was
Right.
excited, happy.
Yeah. Well, even then, if you look at the journal entries, that's the really interesting part, because he's talking about how he wants to get away from it. He's like, I'm running
he
away
wanted
from
to put
this.
it to bed.
Right.
Yep.
he wanted to move on to the next big script.
And
And
that
it,
is not being in a dark place, because you cannot write and be creative when you're in a dark space for the most part. I mean, I
right.
know some acid rock writers, maybe that's where they have to be to get their screaming song and lyrics. But when you're
There's Poe.
writing films and books and stuff, that the type that he was doing, you can't be depressed and losing it and losing control and your grip on reality is slipping. No, the guy had it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I mean, there's some writers. I mean, look at Poe. I'm pretty sure that guy was in a dark place at all times. But that's Poe.
But these guys, though, okay, if you know anything about those writers and those artists, they were higher than kites,
You're right.
constantly doing things to get that creative juices flowing, because when they weren't,
Mm-hmm.
they could not write.
Right.
David was not relying on some substance to get him to go. So that's what I'm saying. When you look in reality, he wasn't
Right.
in a dark place.
Right. Exactly. He was in a place of. He was trying to get away from that stuff anyways. He didn't like the way it made him feel. My guess is he probably didn't get a whole lot done, and was probably really just starting to look in things from maybe it was getting dark when he was on, when he was smoking the pot and drinking and all this. I mean, maybe that's the place it did take him, but he got off that. He made that very, very clear. He didn't like the feeling. It goes right back to that full circle and the drinking and the being high and all this. We know he wasn't coming from that kind of an angle. I mean, just to kind of leap off on that other little part to it, they also, the police also said that he wasn't sleeping. Well, we can see that he was, because anybody just brings up the timeline. You can go look through phone records. You can see all this. There's a big gap. And if he wasn't sleeping a ton during the day, you could see these periods where it's 3 hours here, there's no activity at all. Then there's another 3-4 hour period throughout the day. So he was sleeping still. It's not that he wasn't. He definitely, those periods right there, they're kind of showing, well, what was he doing during this time? Was he just kind of sitting there, twiddling his thumbs the whole time? Or is he just, just literally just asleep? I'm pretty sure that's what was going on.
Yeah.
So, and this is also coming from a guy that, he'd been to war, so he probably valued his sleep quite a bit. He's like, no, I want to sleep here. I'm going to go sleep.
Oh, and let me tell you, the military will teach you to fall asleep in a fraction of a second. Those
Right.
guys go out like a light, but wake up super fast, too. They
Right.
have to.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And they teach you that right in basic.
Yep.
They want to get you ready for being in a wartime scenario, just in case, because you never know. But he was a soldier too, so that would have been even more crucial for him to do. You got to get up on the fly. You get some sleep here, and then bam, okay, we're going right now. So you got to get up. So
Yep.
this is somebody that This isn't unheard of. Him just getting 3 hours here, and then maybe not a full night's rest. But I mean, this is a soldier. He's gonna be used to this kind of stuff. So, but as for him being in a dark place, the other thing I like to really talk to people, because when it comes to this dark place, the other thing people also bring up is the search history. I forgot to bring that in here, but the search history, saying, oh well, look at the search history. He was definitely in a dark place. Look at all the mass shootings or the massacres and all this he was watching. Well, it's but he's getting
It went
this
to
went
his
to his
movie.
script. Yeah, he wanted to make it. He wanted to really rock somebody's mind, to really shock them, because that's what his movie's supposed to do. He even described it in almost every single interview when talking about his movie. What his even the show, whatever. He wanted to shock people from an artistic
And
standpoint.
it's all part of the process too. Like I
Mhm.
have a writing friend of mine, and I asked her, I'm like, okay, because where I struggle in my writing is doing all this descriptive and describing things. I'm like, I want to fill in the blanks myself, which I guess most people don't want to do. But for her, so she sat there and she told me, she's like, okay, you need to do this. Here's the exercise I'm going to give you. Turn on your TV, and every commercial that comes on, you write down everything you see them doing. They lifted their hand, they moved their hair, they opened the door. So, writers will watch everything that's going to pertain to what they're doing, to not only make sure that they're have enough descriptors and that they keep those juices flowing, but that they understand what it is that people are seeing and what is drawing other people in. those
Right.
storylines. Is it a truth? Is it a lie? And the only way to do that is to watch it.
Absolutely. Well, and even then, it's like, like I was saying before, when it comes down to the scenes, he's looking at the Cotton Forest Massacre. I think that's how you say it. Something like that. But he's watching this. He's got, like, I think 2, 3 different times he's watching this. And it's all in the same day. It's not like it's, over the course of, like, 2 weeks or anything. No, no, no. This is the same day. And it's like the first thing he's searching. Well, why is he searching this out? Well, you look over in the newer script. There's a good reason why he's looking into this, because there's that scene in the script. Not to give too many. Well, you know what? Screw it. Spoiler alert. In the script, they talk about this scene where the bad guys, the bad group, the New World Order, if you will, they're rushing in here and they just start killing this neighborhood. It's just people that are just trying to live their lives. They're fighting back, yeah, but they're just having a good time, and they're coming in and just start shooting people. They have a dog maul somebody. All this is like, oh, geez. Well, what happened with the Cotton Forest Massacre? That was pretty damn dark.
Yeah.
It was really, really grim. Massacre's massacre. It's gonna be dark no matter what. But how it was done, that's the type of thing. He was taking that, and he was almost like, it was kind of like a copy and paste. And then like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like how some artists do. They'll take an image that's already out there, and they'll go and they'll print it off, and then they want that pose or something that's in the background there, and they'll go and they'll hook it up on their light box if they're doing it, freehand. They'll get another piece of paper and just kind of trace over that area, or just draw something similar, but trying to go and capture that. I think that's essentially what he was kind of doing, if you will, just kind of like how that scenario broke down. He's following that as he's writing his script. I think it's more or less what he was kind of going over.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I could see that.
So I'm guilty when I was doing my comics and stuff. I like a pose that the character's in. All right, let's go get this pose. Let's go and get it all drawn up, and I'll go over with my light box so I can kind of capture where the skeletal frame is of a character, and then just go from there. And I build my character off of that. I like the pose. Great, I'm going to take the pose. It's a good pose. So.
Yeah, and when I was part of a writing group before, and I'm telling you, all of us were either writing horror, sci-fi, or paranormal books, and it was the running joke going, oh boy, if the police look at our laptops, we're in trouble.
Right.
Because of the things we researched, the things we had to read, watch, and all this other stuff. I mean, you would have gone, oh my goodness, these people have lost their minds. But it
Absolutely.
was all research for our books.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. It's a process, and I don't think the police necessarily, that's why I don't think they really viewed that as, he was in a dark place per se. I think that's why it was kind of, it wasn't ever mentioned that, he was in a dark place. At least I don't recall it being mentioned that he was in this dark place. I remember very clearly that a couple of his so-called friends were saying, sometimes Dave would go to a dark place and we'd have to drag him out. The one person I don't recall actually bringing this up was Mitch Heil, which goes back on the whole friend thing. That was his only friend. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is trying to go and paint David in this, he lost weight and, he was not fit anymore. He was all jacked up. He was not sleeping. He was on drugs. He was drinking all the time. The script was just messing him up. When really, in reality, when we look at all of it, it's not true.
Yeah, and it's all in how they're twisting it, because I do think that David states in his journal that there was a point where he was so focused on what he was doing that all he did really was right. And he's like, oh man, if I ever do that again, you gotta let me know. And
right.
But that wasn't a quote-unquote dark place. It's, unless you write, you're not going to understand this. But you do. When you get into something and you get so focused, everything goes away. You
right.
forget to eat, you forget to go to the bathroom, you forget to take a shower, you forget even what time of day it is. You're so focused on getting this thing done and getting on paper, and you lose yourself in that. And you become, your work really becomes you, and you become your work. That's not going to a dark place. It's kind of like, not a dark place in the sense of what they're trying to twist it to be. And David was like going, Oh, yeah, boy. I mean, and it drained you. He's like, oh, I don't want to do that again. So if you guys see me doing that, let me know. And so, I don't want to spend 3 days writing scripts,
Right.
and
Well,
and that's way different than losing your mind.
exactly. Do you got anything else on that, Sophia?
Uh, no, I mean, sorry, my daughter was talking to me.
It's all good.
I've actually been working on my book, and what Catherine was saying is very true.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'll wake up early in the morning so I could do some writing and knock out something, at least a couple pages or whatever, and it's I lose track of time, and all of a sudden the kids are up, and they're getting ready for school, and I literally have to pin it down so that I can help and get them out the door and everything. But
Right.
it's like you do lose track of time. You don't want to
Focus.
be distracted at all. And anyway,
I mean,
yeah.
that's the big thing.
And
It's just focus.
I wouldn't. And because of this case and the things that I've had to research and stuff, I seriously do not want the cops looking at my search history. I think I better be deleting that anyway.
Well,
Like a weirdo.
right.
And still find it.
Well, and what it comes down to is just it's a focus thing. Some people they see that as, oh, this person's just antisocial or whatever, but no, this person is just straight up focusing. I mean, I lose track of time. I'm very, very guilty of this. I'll be working on something. I'll be doing research. I'll be doing reading, whatever, and I can lose track of time. Even when I was gaming, same thing. I'd lose track of time. Oh, so much progress is happening, so I lose track of time. And I think that's what David was kind of experiencing, but these other guys are like, no, that's a dark place. Yeah, but why is that a dark place though? I don't see it. It's just more focus, guys. I mean,
Right.
What was it that I was watching where Sean Wright had written that he had shown up to David's a couple times when he was in the middle of writing, and he tried to have a conversation with David, and David was like, shh, just sit there.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but I mean,
but I can't remember where I read this.
I read that somewhere too,
Mhm.
and I can't remember either. But I thought David had stated it too, in the journal. And he's like, you're coming up. I mean, as a writer, and you guys know, if somebody comes over and they interrupt you, you're going to tell them, hey, quit your yapping. I have an idea. I got to get it down.
right?
So stop talking.
Yeah, it's like, just give me a second. Come on, it's okay. Just give me a second. I'll be right with you. Just 1 second.
That second
Yeah,
will turn into a few hours.
Sometimes
I
it's
can't
5
really
minutes.
do
Sometimes
this.
it's
Well, I can't do this with the kids because they don't understand. They're too young. So if I just tell them in a minute, they can't comprehend that.
right.
But my daughter, I'll just like hold my hand up.
Uh-huh.
just back off for a few minutes. I got to get this thought out.
Yeah, just
And
give me
then
a second. I'll be
I'll
done
deal
just a
with
second. No, I get that.
Phone, dog.
So the next part we got here is that the Crowley family was broke, and once again, David just snapped. Thoughts on that one?
Come on, Sophia. I know you have stuff to say on this.
There was a $14,000 check on the porch.
Right?
Okay.
And their bank account was not empty.
$14,000.
Yeah, they still had money.
I just don't. I don't understand how you could send that amount of money to somebody. You don't trust it to send it through the mail, so you drop it off and you put it on their front porch.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
sure, that's totally believable.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
I found that part very odd. So I'm not sure. Maybe when Dan Crowley Jr. decided to drop it off, maybe he didn't know that was in there. I mean, that's a possibility. Or maybe
I would love. I
he
would
didn't
love to
actually
be
do
a
it.
fly on the wall when Dan Sr. found out that Dan Jr. dropped that check off on the porch and left it there.
Right. I want to be able to fly
Oh
on the
my
wall.
God.
Just that discussion with where did my $50,000 go?
Right?
Yeah, yeah, that would be a fly on the wall for that one. Yep.
Yeah. Well, because that was an odd one. So I mean, if Dan Jr. could easily pull from that $50,000, and David, we know he wanted just to kind of separate, but he did have that as a backup. If they were really that broke, I mean, I wouldn't have put it past anybody to really be like, okay, well, I'll tap into this a little bit, and then we'll, replenish it over time or something like this. But I don't
Yeah.
even think that was necessarily it either. I don't think he had to replenish if he didn't want to, because it appeared that the dad would just continually replenish if that was the case, Because we didn't see it. I don't believe Dan Jr. actually even. I don't think that was him replenishing. I believe it was Dan Sr. who replenished that
Correct.
Yeah,
$50,000.
it
So
was. It was.
so that
And
just brings it back to that.
you've been looking at the phone records. Did you see all the calls that David made that following Monday after the 50 grand was withdrawn? He made
Mm.
all these calls to Wells Fargo.
Oh,
And yes, you need to look that up. That's interesting because I'm sure that the bank closed early on that Saturday when I guess maybe Dan Sr. was contacted or maybe David was contacted. I'm not exactly sure how this went down. So I'm just assuming. But he then makes quite a few calls to Wells Fargo that following Monday.
really?
Yes.
So what are you implying? Are you trying to say that David took that 50 grand?
No, I don't think so.
No, no. I think David was trying to find out what exactly happened.
Right.
That Dan Sr. got an alert or something.
But wasn't it
And
50 grand? Oh, Wells Fargo from his account at
Mm-hmm.
Wells bank account, not his mortgage. Oh my gosh, sorry.
It's all
Now,
good.
now
yeah,
I'm with you. Sorry.
well, they're all together. I
Right.
mean,
Okay.
all those accounts David had access to.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking that Dan Sr. got the alert and asked David to take care of it or to follow up or something. I don't know what it was going on,
Find out what it
but
was about.
there's calls.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna pull it up here in just a second for everybody to see. So that was what date was that? $50,000. That was like what, in
It
November or
was
was it
in
October?
October.
Was it October? Okay,
Yeah, the
perfect.
middle of October.
Okay, let's see, middle of October. Let me go get the
While you're looking
exact
that
date.
up, I'm gonna go look at the moon again. It's so pretty. I wish you guys could see it. I'll be back.
No worries, no worries. So we got the
I'm
withdrawals. So we'll
looking at
take.
it on YouTube.
Let's see. So we got the
Ooh,
$50,000 was October between the 18th and 24th. Perfect. All right. Let's take a look at the phone number timeline. All right. Let's go see Wells Fargo. Let's see. There's a lot of CC coins, which we know those are like a call forwarding service. I believe it was CC coin. I want to say it was CC coin. Maybe it wasn't. There was somebody there that was a call forwarding service. Let's see. Wells Fargo. There it is, 1108. Yeah, the earliest one I'm seeing, it looks like 1108. And it's
mm-mm.
yeah, I mean that's what I found
Yeah,
on it.
it's in the phone records.
I'll take a look and see. It would have to have been under an unknown number. That's the only way that would have not been. Let's see.
Okay, let me look it up because Dan and I actually did a video on this years ago.
Interesting.
Actually, 2 years ago. So,
Yes,
okay, I'll
that's
look it up.
all right. Much appreciated.
hmm
As we're looking, it's got to be between the 18th and the 24th.
Was it his new number that you have pulled up?
Yeah, that's the new phone number timeline. That's all I've got. That's only the new numbers on there. I've got the older one, but that's I'm still putting that one together. There's so much to go over.
What is the last four of the new number? I keep
Last
forgetting.
four. Let me make sure that's not up on the screen. Perfect. It's not. The new number It was the 4890.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. So
Okay,
if that occurred before the 21st, then yeah, that would have been the older phone number. I can take a look. Is that one I should have? I think I have that
You're
one.
right. It is the older phone number.
It would have had to have been because the newer one it's not popping up. So let me see.
Oh gosh, I hate this. It's all sideways.
Yeah. That's why I just got it all in here,
Okay.
and I can just go and take a look. Let's see. Old phone number timeline.
Sorry.
All right.
August.
Oops. Oh, this is taking forever to load. What? Okay, it's not saying anything about that. Okay, well, then I'll have to go and skip through. So I know for a fact there was Wells Fargo on the old one. Maybe I haven't gone that far in then. Maybe. Let's see. Nope.
If it's not David, then it's got to be Camille.
So we're looking on from the 21st. We have Kamel. There's a ton from Kamel. Is unknown numbers. Those are all, I believe, blanks. Like there was no number there, or there was like one of those AT&T ones. Let's see. Wells Fargo. Is that? I mean, if it was under Wells Fargo, then I would have had that listed as Wells Fargo on the newer one. So yeah, it would have had to have been on the older phone numbers. I don't have that one all the way up that far. So.
Okay, just give me a minute. You guys
Sure.
can cover. And I'm in October right now.
Okay.
I just got to figure out what Wells Fargo's number is.
Is the moon like red right now or something? So no, Greg is saying the moon's a trip right now.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I can't really see it when clouds are super.
Yeah, I can't see it either. Very
super cloudy out there. Oh, it's all good.
disappointing.
Yeah, I might go on Google or I'll YouTube it later. But yeah, I mean, we can basically already show that David's family was not broke by any means, and if there was any issue with finances, David, I'm sure, would have just pulled money from the other account, the big one with $500,000. So, I don't see that as an issue. I think that's pretty reasonable, pretty self-explanatory. So, definitely not broke. All right, let's see the next one we've got. Let's see. We went over that one. Oh, my favorite one. This is the most hilarious one. Whoopsies. When I say hilarious, I mean just it's kind of sad that this is where it went. But both David and Kamel's families and friends believe the narrative. Oh, jeez.
That breaks my heart.
Well,
I
even
don't
then,
see how.
we can always look at the one thing with there was one person at least in David's family that was close to both David and Kamel, at least at one point. But Catherine, she didn't believe it.
Right.
Any more thoughts on that?
I just find it interesting whether or not she died from natural causes, but the one person who vocalized she didn't believe her son was guilty and then ends up dead a few months later.
Right.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, no, it's sad because I mean I'd love to go and find out how did she exactly pass. I mean, she was sitting outside. Her boyfriend didn't come over and see her the night before or anything like this. I mean, I I don't know. I'm not buying it. 'Cause I'm curious, like, what was her relationship with her boyfriend at that point? That he wouldn't come check on her, especially not hearing from her or something like this. I don't know. That just seems something like that would have been a little typical, kind of good relationship, check on the partner, go check on them and make sure they're all right. Especially that they're not responding. Well, I mean, then it's like, well, why aren't you responding? But we also know what the relationship was like, so I don't know.
Yeah, but I do not understand, David's dad, and I'm not judging him. I'm saying I don't understand it. With Camille's family, it kind of makes sense because, that's the wife, and they might want to just say, okay, it's easier to believe David did this, although, for whatever reason. But David's own father,
Hmm.
his brother, and his sister,
Yeah.
everybody's just content, and they just let him go. He's, they, I don't know. I couldn't do that. If it was my family, even if I thought they were guilty, and I'm pretty freaking harsh. Just ask my family. I would have no problem telling one of my family members, "Screw you, kiss my ass, and we'll talk later." If they were a complete jerk.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, you want to go. Are you sure they did this? That doesn't sound like them. How did this happen, and what really happened? But everybody just took it. Okay.
Yep. David did this. Makes sense. But it doesn't. And these are people that actually got. I'm like 99% sure they got all the details before anybody else did. This is what happened. This is what we believe happened. All this. They were in communication with the police. So that's the part that's really sad about all this.
Yeah.
But it's really unfortunate because I mean you're seeing from his sister, she doesn't give a crap. She just goes and confronts David in the email. You get to see David's brother. He doesn't really care. He's not trying to call him or text him. The dad doesn't try and call or text him, especially on the new phone number. There was not a single sign, and even then, his dad lied on a grace date. Just outright, just said, "Yeah, David texted me. Oh, it's just what was it? Like he was walking away from the script. It was like, why are you lying about the script now too? And this contract deal. That's the part that confused me because
Well,
even
and
his
that's
dad's
that's
lying
what I
about
was
it.
trying to tell you about earlier, though, is did somebody send it but make it appear like it could have come from David's phone? But still, even you would think if that were my child and I knew what they had put blood, sweat, and tears into a movie deal like that, and if I got some stupid text that said, "Oh, I walked away from it, a change of heart or whatever stupid ass comment," I'm sorry, it just pisses
Oh,
me
it's all
off.
good.
I would be calling them. I would have, and if they didn't answer, I would be showing up at their door going, "What is wrong with you? Get your head out of your butt and get back to this."
Absolutely.
But nobody
Yeah, the
cared.
families to support. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah, and that was a good opportunity. That was a very, very good opportunity. Not to mention the Mikes even talked about, oh no, no, that deal was still in the works.
Yeah.
So,
And they were the ones who offered it, so they would know.
right, right. David didn't back out on him. No, it's very clear in if you go over the contract, it's very, very clear that David needs to go and do a few things before they can actually go and sign the deal because it even says right there at the very top something along the lines of David Crowley and something else, but it basically says soon to be basically business, not verbatim like that, but essentially soon to be the LLC is going to be that's what we're going to refer to as I don't know what it was being referred to, but it's being referred to something else. And essentially anytime they're referring to David Crowley, boom, it's this right here. I believe it's the product or something like this. Oh no, it's the work. What is his? What it was? The work. So when it comes down to it, it's like that deal is still in the works. Why is David's dad lying about this? And even then, we've got proof that David didn't tell his dad anything about this. There was nothing there in the phone records. So if there's nothing in the phone records stating this, showing that okay, yeah, during this time David had texted his dad or called his dad, and this is what was discussed or what it was texted. Well, there's no text message. There's no phone calls. So if there's none of that, then why is his dad lying?
And that's what I wonder. It's like, has Dan Sr. even read anything? Because I get it. At the very first moment, and when all this was happening, I can only imagine, and I don't really want to imagine, but I can only imagine the shock. And he must have mentally shut down and
Right.
just said, okay, okay. Because how do you process that? You can't process your child being killed like that. However, through all these years, didn't it just dawn on him just once? Didn't it prick his memory, his brain to go, did my son really do this? Maybe I should look into it.
Right. And honestly, I mean, that's where I think we can go and take a look at the journal and see the same thing, what was stated. Because he calls it like was it the Crowley curse, the Crowley gene or something like this. But David talks pretty nasty about his dad in a way, like really just describes him as this guy who's just career oriented and really the kids are kind of a burden. And I can understand where David's like, I want to break this, is I don't want to be like my dad. And that's essentially what he's
Right.
saying in his journal. So if he's saying
Right.
he doesn't want to be like his dad, obviously there's something there where maybe he's not a big fan of his dad. So
Yeah, but
I
and I
think
hear you. Go ahead.
I found the calls to Wells Fargo.
Mhm.
They're on his own old phone log, and it starts on page 261,
okay.
262. And this is October 20th, 2014.
Okay. Yeah, that still falls in that week, so that makes sense.
And it was 5:26 p.m., 5:31 p.m., and 5:35 p.m.
You said on the 20th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's take a look at something real quick. So if we're looking at the 20th, then it must have happened on the 19th. Let's go and just check the receipts. When was that?
No, it would have happened the 18th.
The receipt was?
When whoever went into Wells Fargo, it would have been the 8th.
Yeah, that was on a weekend, was it,
18th?
when he called?
No, that was the 20th, and I believe that was the Monday.
Okay. Let's see. Just gotta go and get in here real quick. Let's see. Because that's what I'm curious about it now, is if the receipt, that was, I mean, whenever that was, it would just be nice to have it up. So we can just reference it real quick. Here's receipts. Let's see. This one? Yeah, right here is on the 18th, on 2014. 10/18, 2014, day. That was a Saturday, so that was most likely done earlier in the morning too. It's generally banks aren't open like past like 1 or whatever. So if we're looking at that, it doesn't have the exact time on there, but I mean that makes sense. It's blacked out too. It looks like redacted. But yeah, that's and even then it almost looks like they were trying to write the 19th. But yeah, that's interesting. So then you got the 20th and those calls are made. So yeah, it's David probably checking in and be like, "Whoa, what is this? What is this $50,000 and why'd you pull this out?"
He doesn't have a call from his dad at all
Mm-mm.
coming in. So either his dad got a hold of him through Facebook or maybe a text message.
No, I don't think there was anything in the
No.
phone records for David or for Dan C.
Will, can you go back to the receipt and then
Oh,
looked
show it
like
off?
there was I wanted to look at something, see if I could
Sure.
yeah, the receipt right there. Yeah, and is there a second page where it shows a signature?
Mm-hmm. Well, you can see David's.
Okay, that's different. Okay, but
Yeah.
okay, now on the receipt one, right there. Can you zoom in? So, because it looks like there's some little, no, right. Yeah. Is there, I'm trying to see if they have a time in with those little numbers
Mm, doesn't look
down
like it.
below, right where the numbers are, the, but I can't see it. It's too small.
All right, let's see.
You're up too high. Where it says, yeah, if you scroll up. Yeah, right in there. That where it says 1948. Go back down, 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 down. Yeah, in there. Those that at 1948. It's somewhere in there on that line. I was trying to see if that had any information, but it's not readable. Doesn't
Mm-mm.
look like. Okay.
No, it says 19485624455. But yeah, no, there's no time on here. Just got the date, and the time very well could have been up here potentially, or down here. But
But
interesting.
usually, I mean, the little printout right that's on that same line as that bold number,
Mm-hmm.
it could have a time and date and then other information on that, but I can't see it.
Right. Yeah, there's nothing on here saying time, which sucks. But it's really interesting because it's like this $50,000. What is this used for? And that's the part I would love to find out. What was this 50,000 used for? Is that's not a small little chunk of change there. No, it's a pretty good pile.
Yeah,
And just to go
especially
and
when
pull.
it's coming from the father's account and the son is taking it out and his father's not in the country.
Right. So it just kind of begs the question, what was he doing?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so basically what we're seeing here is, I mean, the family and friends. I mean, you've got Sean Wright, all for it, and Mason Hendricks, all for it. You've got Dan Jr., Dan Sr., you got Heidi Lish. I mean, you've got all these different people that are all back in this narrative. Yeah, well, this narrative seems pretty legit, but there's no proof to show this. We see David talking about in the journal about them getting away from the family and friends because, well, they're mooches. That's all they are.
Right, and there have been a couple of soldiers who served with David. One guy did, I think it was a TikTok video or something like that, and then there was another soldier. I don't remember if he did a YouTube or did another kind of video, and they're like, no, there's no way he did this. So people who were friends of David that weren't part of this gray state thing
Mm-hmm.
all believe his innocence, but it seems like everybody who was associated with Gray State say he's guilty.
Right. Well, and what's
And I
funny
find
is
that interesting.
what's really also pretty funny is even the producers, the Meg, they didn't really. It didn't seem like they really were buying it either.
Right.
And they got to go and meet David. They got to go and see this. I mean, I think it kind of irritated irritated him a little bit. I think that was how they were trying to go and perceive David as this cocky individual. But it wasn't he was cocky. He was planning, and he was very, very precise. He was very logical. If he came
Well,
off a
and
little
then
cocky, I mean,
yeah, and then when that dipstick, who was it, Nelson or Herzog or whoever took whatever David was rehearsing and then let them listen to it, where he's giving himself this pep talk to, do his speech and his spiel so he's ready when he goes to talk to him, and then plays it so it comes across like David is some arrogant gas bag, and those guys were like, oh, whoa, that's not who we met, and now their feelings were hurt. And they did it on purpose. I'm like, what kind of an okay,
you
I'll
can
keep
say
it
it.
clean.
No, you can say it.
What kind of fucking asshat are you to do some kind of shit like that?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't give a fuck if you are from Hollywood. You don't do that to somebody.
Right.
And then pat yourself on the back like you did something great. You are a low-life scumbag.
Right.
And that was just wrong because all he did was, record himself giving a speech to pep him up, which showed me that he wasn't as confident as he put out there, that talking was not something he really looked forward to.
Well, and even then, if you read the journal too, it says the same thing. He was nervous. He was anxious.
Yeah.
This is a guy that he's like, oh man, I really hope I don't blow this. And what's really funny is that was another one I also did. I was looking at it, and they cut the crap out of that one too. You can see it with the film itself. You can see with the audio and all this, they cut the crap out of that. And you can tell from the background noise. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can get into, and that's all they did. They were trying to go and play the world against David. That David was this PTSD-ridden, drug addict, drunk, abusive person who just was crazy. But really, he wasn't. It's just like the dystopian.
Yeah, and what's disgusting is I do have, it's not on this laptop, otherwise I would send it to you. It's on my other laptop. But there's an article where it was Eric Nelson, right? Where he was, him and Herzog, or Wurzog, whatever that
the Freemason
dipshit's name is. But anyway, he's having this article written in an online newspaper blatantly saying, he goes, oh, well, I had a narrative, so I cut and pieced things together, and I had it set up so people would end up saying things, so people would then kind of draw the conclusion I'm leading to, and it worked.
Right.
So, yeah, you just told the entire world you wrote a narrative, and you had a purpose in mind to say he was guilty, and you were happy that people were following your line of thinking, not the facts of the case. It had nothing to do with any truth or facts. It was all about where he wanted people to go and what he wanted people to think, and he was happy he succeeded.
Yeah, he was basically just like, here's your collar, and I'm going to go, I've got the leash here, and I'm going to drag you guys this way. We're going to go and put some blinders on so you can't see the rest of the story here. And just going to walk this way. And, hang on. Let me put up some little, green screen effects here. And here we go. We're going to walk through this area where you guys are going to think, oh, this guy's just crazy. But really, it's just smoke and mirrors. This guy's, they literally did exactly, and I know this has been brought up multiple times. They did exactly what it said in David's 2013 script about what's the worst they can do? Kill me? Oh, is that the worst you think?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, they're gonna go and ruin your legacy. They're gonna ruin your memory. So everybody thinks you're this just heinous, evil person.
Yeah, and they're proud of themselves.
I have that written down.
No, I
have that whole quote written down.
Yeah, it's a good one. I put it into the Death of the Family trailer #2. So
it's actually the beginning of my book.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, and it's a great quote because you see the truth in it all.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because even to this day, I mean, we are fighting. Well, not fighting. It's like that's not the right word, but we are constantly having to deal with these nimrods who just want to think he's guilty just because they have nothing to back it up. They show nothing, but because they saw that stupid sloppumentary, oh no, it's telling the truth. So they were successful in creating this hatred in other people toward a man who was slaughtered in his own home with his family.
Right.
How disgusting and mental is that?
Well, and as we always go over too, and this seems to be just the general trend. There's so much from the crime scene that already disproves that was the case. And the big one to really just look at real quick, just briefly looking at the crime scene, is where's all the blood? You see they're missing appendages. There's no blood. Then you start following that. And it's like, well, okay, the trash was taken out. There's nothing in there. Who took the trash out then? And so it leads right back to that. And then you start going and exploring the rest of the crime scene and seeing all these other things, bodies being moved, you see mold, you see no high velocity blood spatter, there's lots and lots of things you're seeing there, just like, what? And it doesn't take much to see it, but the people aren't looking at the crime scene. And it's not that the photos are hard to find,
Where's the blood pools from their heads from laying there as they died?
Well, even then, where's all the excess, what's it called, decomp fluid? Where's all that? You got some on there, but that would have seeped through the carpet. That's not going to get all absorbed in the carpet. That would have seeped through. Not to mention you had a hole in the carpet. That would have seeped in through there. There would have been some stuff going in there, and then on top of that, then you have the floor itself. You got something that's it's not going to necessarily absorb it super quick, but it's going to kind of, the fluid will sit there, so with the dog moving around all that, that's going to get down the hole. Why is there nothing in the basement? So
Yeah, and no matter how many times we try to educate some of these people, you know, a body decomposes at the rate it decomposes. I don't care what your ego is trying to tell yourself,
right,
but when the autopsy reports stay early to moderate and they're able to section and take tissue samples of the internal organs, they were not advanced decomp. They were not 3 weeks out on that floor.
right,
They literally were early to moderate, which means probably cut off right around the 10-day mark, which means that they were still alive until January. And but they want to say, no, well, no, the cops are saying, well, the last time anybody saw them was December 25th. So it was, and I'm like going, oh my God, shut up. Just shut up, and look and read.
right.
But they don't because they want to follow the narrative.
Absolutely. And that's all that ever goes over.
I'm sorry. This is really starting to piss me off. All these people. I'm sorry. I think I've just had it. I've just had it with all of the sheer stupidity and everybody who has condemned this man who was slaughtered in his home, and they're happy to do it, and then hate everybody who wants to defend him.
Right.
And they hate him.
Yeah.
I mean, they hate him so much and they hate us so much that they refuse to take the scales off of their eyes to see the actual truth.
Right.
It's like, answer this. Where are the pools of blood? Because they're not on that carpet.
Right.
I mean, where
Canella's
head is laying, there should be a huge pool of blood. But there isn't. You zoom in on that carpet right there in that corner, it is clean.
Yeah, it's clean, and that's the huge telltale right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which at that point, you're looking at the crime scene as, okay, well, was there plastic down? Was this even committed there? There's all sorts of different kinds of questions. And then that's where you start getting into some of these friends' statements which, well, I mean, they weren't necessarily out to the public initially. There was discussions with Greg and all this between him and Mason Hendricks. And Mason Hendricks is talking about decibels and then talking about the basement. And you keep going around these little rabbit holes. It's like, well, why are you talking about decibels, dude? We weren't mentioning things like silencers. Nothing was mentioned because, well, then you're looking for specific things, and we're not seeing any traces of that type of activity on that pistol. Doesn't mean it couldn't have been done potentially by another pistol, but once again, we've got the bullets, so we know which gun that came from too. So we've got that. But then at the same time, we're not talking about silencers. We're saying, okay, well, why didn't anybody hear this? If this was done in the house, why didn't anybody hear this? And he's bringing up, okay, well, then he's got the basement, and then he's got, there's all sorts of things in the house, and he's trying to go and remain like he's this expert source on this. But it's like, dude, no. You're making some crap up. Somebody would have heard that. Not to mention, we know that people had heard something going on. At least they'd heard some noises, and that were comparable. They would have been comparable.
Right.
Because you've
got
got
6 shots from a 40 cal handgun.
Yep.
Somebody's going to hear something. You're going to hear one of those at least. Oh my gosh.
So I mean, the two people. I don't want to bring one of them up, but I have to because somebody was there that they mentioned in that they had heard a gunshot or a couple gunshots, but they were saying December 19th.
Yeah, in the early part of December.
That's way too early. Yeah,
Right.
It's way too early.
Exactly. And then you got the other one, which was it was one of the neighbors. He was on, I believe it was right behind David's home, I believe it's to the right, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember the neighbor's last name, but one of the neighbors had heard something that he wasn't sure if it was fireworks or if it was gunshots. But he had heard something.
It was also early in the month as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was.
So
nobody actually heard the gunshots when they were supposed to have happened.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a red flag.
Right.
For me, at least.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, have you noticed that none of these guys actually answer a question? Straight up answer a question. They dance around it, and then they gaslight you.
Right. And then they critique you on why you think David is innocent, when you should just believe the narrative. It's like, why are you believing the narrative? Weren't you guys supposed to be friends? then they dance around that and they go right back to it. And it's like, oh, oh, that's cute, guys.
Yeah.
So you guys
I
can't
mean,
answer
they
us.
were making a movie about conspiracies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're the horrible people for asking questions. We should just accept this narrative.
Right.
And the way that they protect the narrative is a huge red flag.
Yep.
You know, it's like, okay, well, we're no longer making a difference, so we're just going to send other people after you guys.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's unfortunately how it
Right.
goes. You know, it doesn't make any sense. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and like my big thing is I've gone around now and I've actually asked people that were in the rise. And speaking on the rise, then you've
Mm-hmm.
also got, you know, Danny August Mason trying to, you know, even during that whole negotiation period, oh, well, you should just give me the rise. Me and this other guy, Robert Hoyt or whatever, which he had nothing to do with Gray State as far as we knew. Now he's jumping on board with David, and they're going to go and do the rise. David never really wanted to do it, but yet David's talking about once this releases, there will be some other trailers coming out too, and he's saying that in the Jason Allen emails. So we know that no, he wasn't going to do that. Hell no. He's like, we're going to release this, and this is going to explain some things, kind of just our creative process here, and then we've got this coming out because the contract isn't fulfilled with the mics, so he can still release it. That's the other thing I was also going to mention was because he never signed the agreements, he couldn't fully sign it yet. You know, they couldn't have anything stick because Danny August Mason would have been part of it then. David doesn't want him to be part of it. So I think, you know,
But
honestly, I
he
think.
was,
Mhm.
Danny August Mason had been written out, and the Mike said that David didn't need to do that to continue with his contract. So they didn't understand why David was writing Danny August Mason out.
It could have
But
been
then
something
when you look at the
Gleason told him,
journals,
though.
it makes sense.
Right. I mean, I think it was something as he was talking to Gleason for some time. You know, they had that stuff going on, and I think that's Gleason. They had something written up before August. I have a feeling it was like, you know, around that July mark they had something there. In fact, I'm positive they did, and I think it was something Gleason said because I think there was some way that David could have been blocked on some things. Some things could have been slowed down. So I think David was just trying to take those extra measures to make sure there was nothing that could get in his way. He could just get this going, and there wouldn't be any fallout with anything. It was just like, nope, Danny August Mason's out, Mitch Heil's out. Therefore, this project is mine to go and just get into Hollywood, and we'll get this going. They can't claim anything. They can't take me to court for a damn thing. And you know, the mics might say one thing, but when it comes to legal, I mean, do they necessarily know all the legality of things? Do they know all the loopholes that Danny August Mason could have pulled? And it does appear that Danny August Mason would have tried to pull something. Because, I mean, if you look at, like, the first email correspondence he has with David, he basically tells him, yeah, you're not in good standing with Gray State, and you did this. This is kind of shady, but I'd like this. And if I'm going to do this, then I would like this, and I would like this, and I would like that. You know, he's just making demands. This is a guy he had something in the works. I'm pretty positive he was getting ready to go, and he was probably researching. He may not even had a lawyer, even though we know he did have a lawyer. But
Yeah, he did.
So
One of his best friends is an entertainment lawyer.
see that's what I'm saying. It's like this guy he was definitely doing some shady stuff in the back. So I think
just don't understand how he could still have something to hold on to if David had rewritten the entire script.
right.
He didn't, and I think that's why David brought it to him and said, "Hey, you know, you can have the rise because Danny did have stuff to do with the rise. You know, a lot, not just with the writing, but with everything else." And so he's like, "Hey, I'll just give it to you, but you sign off on this other stuff." And the reality is I think he was trying to do it, yes, maybe to protect his butt because, yeah, Danny's that kind of a person where he would try to go after whatever he felt he wanted, not what he deserved. And so I think he was trying to protect himself, although he didn't need to. And then what did he get for it? He got stabbed in the back, figuratively stabbed in the back.
Yeah. And that's the issue with it is David saw these things. He saw a lot of it way too late. He wasn't working these things out. After meeting him and all this, and really starting to see some of the little, this guy's just mooching. He's not doing any good. Okay, he's just he's going and going and going. With this whole mooch game, here, he didn't, instead of just saying, you know what, this guy is toxic and I need him out of my life. He's like, no. He writes in his journal. He's like, either he's gonna go and work with me, or I'm going to destroy him. And he's not talking like, literally he's going to destroy him. He's just like, look, I'm gonna have to go and break this whole thing off. This friendship is not going to be worth it if he's not willing to work with me here. And even then, he was like, he was trying to play with like highball, right? And he was expecting Danny August Mason to kind of try to, get somewhere in the middle ground, and he's like, no, I'm going all the way to the top. I want all of this. You're going to give me this. And I think that's where David's like, oh crap, well, I don't need to go and give you any of this. And the Mike's probably told him this too, so it comes down to the same thing. He's like, well, I'm going to go and try and work this out with you to make this work so we can have our friendship still. I think that's what it really came down to, but I can't prove that necessarily, but definitely an interesting part. Any more on that topic at all? If not, let's move on to our final topic. All right. So this last one here is David had PTSD, and once again, just snapped. Oh, there's no proof.
And I'm
the only thing I can say is that David talks about having some type of a PTSD. I don't think it was diagnosed, though, and it had nothing to do with the actual warranting violence.
Right.
It was from him being held over, being kidnapped, is how he said it was, and held over.
That quote unquote PTSD, the feeling he felt was that he knew at any time the military could come back and drag him back off, and he didn't want to. And that's what he wasn't looking forward to. And like we were talking about just the other night, it's like someone with true war PTSD is not going to be doing the trailers that David did. They're not going to be out there firing their weapons like David does and training people on how to do hand-to-hand combat for movie scenes. You don't do that.
Yeah, they're going to be backing off from that. It's going to be crippling.
Yep.
I mean, some of the things that he was doing with his target shooting and going to the range, they literally were reenacting live fire situations.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked forward to those. So, I mean, if he had PTSD, would he really be looking forward to that? Would he even put himself in that situation?
Right. There's no way. And in the trailer where they're doing those actual, you've got the guys in the BDUs and, out there doing actual firefights going back and forth. Someone with PTSD could not do that.
Mm-hmm.
It would have sent them off and they would have lost it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Yeah, so that's an easy one to go. That's an easy one to go and end the show on, of course. He was obviously there was no snapping. Obviously, we've already established this. That's not a thing, anyways. But he didn't. Nothing really. All these common things that people have talked about. Is
it okay if I kind of take this in a different direction for just a brief moment?
Sure.
And because the old snapped thing, and we know David doesn't have any police records, not one accusation of violence, no ever did he leave a bruise on his wife, nor did he ever beat his child. There's no proof that he was a violent and abusive person. Now, there are other people associated with this man and this project who have been arrested for domestic violence, domestic abuse. and more than once.
Right.
And so the police don't look at that. They don't see that there are people close to David and close to the situation who have that abusive background and who had motive, and opportunity. And they're not, I mean, I'm not saying they did it. I'm saying, but the police didn't even stop to say, hey, maybe we should in question them about, some stuff here. It's a little weird.
Right.
But no, they go after a man whose record is completely clean, who's never had one complaint, let alone get arrested and get charged with felony domestic abuse.
Absolutely.
And so that is just mind-boggling.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is.
This is where I think that word came down from up above and basically just said, he's the one who's guilty. We're only looking at him. We don't look at anything else.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, how could police officers who are seasoned not look at other people and just buy people's stories, don't bother to follow up on what they're telling them, checking the phone records, running all of the DNA? We know that the BCA was not running low on funds. It was the beginning of that year.
Right.
No, and they specifically said, hey, here's a list of things we'd like to do. What do you think? And then they came back with a revised list and said no to some and added one, I think, of something else. There was nothing about if it's within a budget.
Right.
They just asked what you want done. Yeah.
And it's all right there in the emails to and from each other in the BCA data request. It's just some people don't want to read it.
Right. That's what it comes down to. There's a lot of reading and a lot of people that have looked at this and they just want to say David's guilty, and that's all they want to say is David's guilty. They don't care, if they really truly cared about the family or about the truth, then they would read these things and they'd see very, very clearly that no, this is false. No, this is false. Oh, this is what this actually means here. And they're not doing that. They don't care to. Excuse me.
It's just like the item 57 and item 57-1. If you look at the report, it basically says that it didn't have blood. It tested negative for blood. 57-1 is just a sample that they took to run DNA.
Right.
What is DNA, Catherine? Can you explain to people what DNA is?
And here's the thing. DNA is the genetic code of which we are made up of. DNA is contained within the nucleus of a cell. Many cells have nucleuses, right? We have skin cells, we have hair follicles, we have bones, we have teeth, we have all kinds of stuff. And there's blood. But some people only believe what, Sophia? I'm being very sarcastic here, William.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
That blood is the only thing that is being tested. And it's not true. Nuclear DNA covers not just the nuclei that's in the blood cells, but they're also doing skin cells, they're doing bodily fluids, they're doing hair follicles, they're testing bone. Whatever is caught on that swab is what's being tested and showing up if there is any DNA on that swab.
Absolutely.
So we can't say whether or not for certain, oh yeah, there was blood on such and such item, and that's what's popping positive. Or, get this, maybe the safe had stem cells on it, because we know that everything that we read throughout the BCA data request and the BCA lab report, and even the Apple Valley PD redacted police report on page 23, it states there was no blood found in the master bedroom. And then he goes on to talk about the gun safe. If there was blood found on that gun safe, he would have mentioned it.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Bingo.
But when you look through these reports and you look at the list and stuff like that, it just says a swab, which is a sample swab so that they could run the DNA test. Anything that tested positive for blood, it says apparent blood
Mm-hmm.
before the description.
Yep.
And
And when it
it's right
doesn't,
there in black and white. So, I mean, but most people, they do not want to look at the report. They don't want to read it. They just want to be spoon-fed information.
Right.
Just like, well, no,
It's all
anyway.
good.
But it is right there, and it's fun to learn about, too. You just
100%.
take one item and you learn about it. You go through the reports and you find everything written about it. And that's how I've learned about each of these items that they tested and didn't test. And for me, it's been quite a journey. I like doing stuff like that. I understand that most people don't.
There's a lot of people that don't. They just want to run with the narrative. It's sheep mentality, as I like to call it. You know, and that's the thing. It's we need critical thinkers when looking at a case. You have to be a critical thinker. You got to be open. You can't just take the narrative and run with it and oh no, this is true. You know, on top of that, when looking at this case, we've already been able to go over lots of this case already, most of it already, and show David's not guilty from almost every single angle. And
Yeah.
you know, that's just from looking at it. Just keeping an open mind. Is David guilty or is he innocent? And not one piece is really shown David is guilty. It's all shown either he's innocent or it's impossible for him to have done this, or which same thing falls under innocence as far as I'm concerned. You know, or it doesn't make any sense, like with the case based on the crime scene, based on what was going on. And I know there's some people out there that will say, well, you know, not everybody's just going to go and, you know, they're not going to leave a note every single time, you know, or when they you know, they decide to go and take their own lives or before they decide to go and kill somebody else. Well, sure. You know, sometimes it's like, you know, there's a buildup, but Kamel would have
but
noticed
yet
these
at this
things.
crime scene, there's supposedly three of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've
I
got the
know.
writing on the wall, the writing on the notepad, and then a little snippet on the computer.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
That none of them make sense?
and we're being led to believe that it's he was
Right.
that Allahu Akbar was a last ditch like effort to like slam Kamel and her faith.
Religion.
Yeah, it's like yeah, I don't think
And
so.
I mean, all of his, well, not all, but a lot of his posts on Facebook were to defend the people over there, the Afghani people and Pakistani people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because he'd been there. He saw what they went through. So why would he go around slamming his wife and her religion?
Right. And if he really hated people
Why would he
of
marry a
that
Pakistani?
right, exactly. Why would he, you know, why would he be so accepting of the father, of the mother, and all this? Why? No,
Yeah.
he loved them all. You know, and that's the part that's really troubling is the fact that it's like, you know, you got his family and his supposed friends, you know, her friends and you know, some of her family that absolutely are like, you know, gung ho, like, yeah, no, this is what happened. David did it. You know, it's just disturbing. It's disturbing to see that because these are people that once again they're refusing to acknowledge that there's something off with this case, and then there's something off with some of the people that David was calling friends, and then there's something off with, you know, what's going on with this case. Why wasn't this really looked at? You know, they find mold. Why did, you know, this is something that they could have easily got the whole exact time of death, and they didn't, or at least relatively close, and they didn't bother even doing anything on that. You know, but yet, of course, you know, we bring these things up. Well, we got the medical records. This would have been something that would have came along with the toxicology, all this. This would have been something that came with it, and there's nothing there because they never did the tests.
Yeah, and
And
to,
we're not
you know,
talking about, oh,
go ahead.
sorry,
Go ahead.
Catherine.
Go ahead.
Uh, okay, we're not talking about mold on the outside of the bodies. We're talking about the inside.
Right?
Correct.
So I just want to clarify that for those who are listening to us discuss this topic for the first time.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but I I cannot drive this home hard enough. When a body reaches an advanced stage of decomposition, the internal organs are liquefied.
Mm-hmm.
The skin and stuff, and not to be gross, this is just a reality. It starts to fall off the body. And I'm talking it falls off.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what you find here at the crime scene.
Nope, still
You
intact.
find 3 bodies who are completely intact. Yes, Kamel has definitely started the bloating stage. She's not in full bloat, but starting, and it looked like little Rania might be, and David might have a little bit of a bloat going on his stomach, but this is all beginning. So this is all early to moderate decomp. Again, people, we know it's more than 0 or 1 days, but it's no more than 10 days that those bodies are on that floor, because things are still being able to be sliced. They're getting tissue samples and then put those organs back with the body.
Mm-hmm.
Think about this. So the entire narrative of them even being dead in the month of December is not true. The ME knows that, and the police department knows that. But yet, what do their reports state? Every single officer goes, advanced state of decomposition, in an advanced state. And I'm like, no. So they're setting a narrative to begin with, which completely is at odds with not only what the ME says, but with what the bodies show.
Right.
So yeah, when it comes to the physical bodies, you have to go by what the ME states, because she's the expert in this case.
Well, and there was a lot of things she left out, and that kind of bothers me too. So why did she do that? Why does she not even talk about the skull pieces, other than the fact that she found that they articulate well with the remaining portion of the skull? I mean, come on. It is evident that there is something seriously wrong with that piece. You've got straight edges, and you have indentations. You have marks on that skull piece. You see them. You can't unsee it once you see it. But yet she doesn't mention it. Why?
It's a good question. And that's
good question.
But it's also, I had a problem with. I get that. That there's, there could have been some circumstance where the ME didn't just go and, the same one. Why Lelinski didn't just go and review all 3 bodies. She only reviewed, I believe it was David and Rania, and then we don't really get any mention anymore about the internal organs than like how we did with Lelinski's examination. We just got, this is what this is. Didn't go ahead and mention anything. So was there mold in Kamel's body? Well, we don't
that's a good question.
We don't get a good answer from that. All we know is no, there's none that they're mentioning. So they didn't mention it.
And when you have an ME who takes 10, 12 hours, at least 12 hours. Yeah, about 12 hours to show up to the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets on scene and is there for a total of 45 minutes from the time she walks in the door to the time she walks out for 3 bodies. And it's only 45 minutes total. And that includes bagging them and getting them on the gurney to take them out.
That's basically all she was there for.
That's what I'm saying. So when you think about, you break that down, she first walks in, she probably gets introduced, what's going on, here they are. So 5 or 10 minutes, 5 minutes, say. And then, and then it takes probably at least 10, 15 minutes to get them bagged up and out the door for 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you got 15, 20, 25 minutes. She was there for 45, so 20 minutes for 3 bodies?
Right.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, that's almost like the narrative was
literally was a scoop and run.
Right.
Yep.
It's almost like the narrative was decided right then and there. Okay, well, we got what we need from this.
It was decided before. Yeah, they already decided, so it's just, come by when you're ready and come pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't it supposed to be the ME who makes that decision?
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be it's supposed to be the ME or someone from her office that gets there first to look at that scene and then do the entire scene survey. I can't think of the right word right now. And then once they get done, Then they call in the BCA and let them collect their samples. But that it was all backwards. Police was there, BCA then was there, and then at last comes the ME.
Yep, tons and tons of
And it should have been in
contamination.
reverse.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
because I have
that's
the list right here, and
I
the
mean, we know the
ME
police showed up
and
first.
yeah, the police.
And then the police with the BCA, and
Yep.
then finally the ME at midnight.
Yep.
Or 12:15 or whatever it was that she decides to show up. And yeah, so there's so many, like you were saying, there's so many things that show us that there was a predetermined narrative. And whatever was decided and what was ever tested and something that they concluded was only there to back up the narrative they came up with. And then
100%.
that's what they used. And this is how it appears. This is my opinion.
Oh, I think it's more than just the way it appears. I mean, this almost looks like that's a fact.
Yeah, because she shows up at 12:30 with her investigator at 12:30.
Okay, 12:30. They stayed till 1:15 then, right?
Yeah, so 45 minutes there at that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
the investigator stayed a little bit longer, to 1:45 in the morning. But we do have Cooksley on the scene. But he's running the BCA. He's not an ME.
Right.
no, he's there helping to collect samples.
So there's nobody else with authority from the ME's office
No.
at that scene.
No, there was. That's what I'm saying, and that they did it completely backward. No one should have been on that scene until after the ME's office was there first.
Right.
And
And
there wasn't like any huge disaster happening in Minnesota to keep them from coming.
correct.
Right. Well, and even then, my big thing here, and I'm pretty sure I got to adjust this on the timeline, but if we're looking at like even 10 days, there's some interesting posts or some interesting things that actually occurred around that time. I'm not going to get into it too much or anything, but it just basically, we have on the 8th, you have Jason Allen responding back to David's email. That's something David would have responded back to immediately. So if we look at the time on this, when he actually responded to him, David most likely would have responded then and there, unless he was asleep. So my guess is, just looking at this alone, I mean, if we're just looking at just from that standpoint, then we'd be looking at he'd had to have been dead before that email was there, or
Yeah, he died. If you're looking at the decomp and the state of the bodies, so somewhere between the 3rd and the 7th, they died.
right. So, but the
Yeah,
big,
and I always have thought the second.
I mean, it's a
That's
possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I still believe that's a possibility. I don't think they were at any point in December is when that actually happened.
Right.
It's definitely in January for sure, but it's also some of these calls, like for instance, Cypress calling had to have been before the 8th. Why? Because they would have answered that. That's for Ranya's school. So we're looking definitely before the 8th, and it would have to have been anywhere between the 1st and the 8th. I would argue at least just in that range, but even then, looking beyond that, I would probably argue anywhere between probably 3rd and 8th as well. But it's interesting because that email, that's also that gives us a big clue here, because David would have responded to that instantly,
Yeah.
unless, like I said, he was asleep. So, but that's there's more interesting things along with that, the day of discovery, plus the timeline up until that point as well. There's just a lot of interesting things, people calling repeatedly. It's bizarre, but but David didn't do it though. It's impossible, literal impossibility.
I'm still waiting for them to produce the proof, and
Right.
that's all we've ever asked for. I think Greg has said it till he's blue in the face. In fact, he might be purple now. He's like, give me the proof. I'll believe you if you show me the proof. And there
Right.
is none.
Right, and even if they did have the proof, there would be some kind of excuse with those said people. Oh well, if you don't buy the story as is, then there's that. But even if we have the proof, we don't need to show you because we don't need to prove that to you. Well, we're not saying you need to, but if you're
I
trying to
don't
go,
need.
if you want to show
David
something,
is innocent, and
Yeah.
I don't need them to quote unquote prove anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, from
Well,
what I have seen, David is innocent, and they have the same exact stuff that we have.
right. Well, and that's the thing. Anybody can find this stuff. I mean, I was able to find the photos very, very quickly, just researching. Just okay, well, uh, Crowley family crime scene photos. You can just use that. 2015 Crowley family crime scene photos, and you'll eventually find the photos. It'll lead you to several different locations, and you'll be able to get a hold of every single photo. So that says something right there. You can get this. It's readily available, and there's plenty of people out there. They'll research the case and they just know David did it, without a doubt. But once again, we live in America here, so for those that are overseas, he's innocent until proven guilty, and they've yet to still prove that he's guilty. So those that are on that side saying he's guilty, you guys have the burden of proof. So you guys have to be bringing that. We don't have to bring crap. We're saying he's innocent, yet we're still showing proof that, well, this explains he's innocent. This explains he's innocent. This explains he didn't do this. I mean, we've talked about PTSD tonight. We've talked about abuse. We've talked about drug and alcohol, usage. We've talked about all these things, common areas where people would claim this is he's dead to rights right here. He did it. But we can prove without a
Okay,
doubt.
but there's two things that we didn't discuss.
Sure.
One was the music that was playing, the music list,
Mm-hmm.
because that absolutely proves David guilty.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's
Sarcasm.
true. That's true. Forgot about that one.
Or, drum roll please, the bloody footprint.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, no, we forgot
That
another
one
one.
nowhere.
We also got another one. Oh, it's David's gun. Oh, ho, ho. His gun, so he had
What
to have
about
done it.
David's gun?
Right, exactly. And then you've got the other one was my favorite was another one that was also brought up with Mason Hendricks' conversation, which David always did this. This is what he did, so that's how this always operated. Well, that's hearsay. I'm sorry, but that doesn't prove anything. It's just hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I want to go back to David's gun really fast because I've heard some theories that are just flat out wrong in regards to his gun and why it proves him guilty.
Right.
And I'm fairly certain David had this gun since before he went into the military. So he was very familiar with this gun. And he trains with it all the time at the gun ranges and stuff like that. He's cleaned it. He knows how to work around this gun. It's nothing new to him.
Right.
He doesn't need to remove the magazine and put a new one in because there was a jam.
No, you
All
do
he
not
has to
take
do
that.
is clear the jam at the top. You just rack the slide. Is that what it's called?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You rack the slide and it pops out, and then make sure a new one's in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason to remove the magazine. And if he had removed the magazine after cutting his hand from racking the slide, that he's done numerous times over and over and over, how many bullets did he fire from that first magazine, number one?
Mm-hmm.
And why did he continue to shoot 6-7 more bullets out of the second magazine?
Yeah, that's probably actually how he lost his right hand too.
I know. I mean, racking the slide is just going to take it all off.
Yeah, and it's just gonna eat it. His
I
hand's
mean,
gone.
you would have to be a complete imbecile to take out a magazine to clear a jam. You don't
Yeah.
do that. Especially if you're in
But
a
he doesn't
situation,
work.
a firing situation where you're doing, you're actually shooting things and at people.
Right.
That you don't drop the magazine.
But somebody who is inexperienced would not know that.
Bingo. Like I said, whoever did this, they just watched way too much CSI, and there's details they didn't pay attention to.
Well, and here's how in my head how I see that working out is the person who didn't know the gun thought that the magazine release button was the turning the safety off. So
Probably.
they pushed it thinking they're turning the safety off, and instead they released the magazine.
I think
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
Then they had to
pretty
take it,
solid right
put
there,
it back in.
which would explain why there's the bloody.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because their hands, they got the blood or whatever, and drops. They push it, it hits the floor. They have to pick it up now with a bloody hand and put it back in.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how I envision this happening because it's the only thing that makes sense to my brain.
I mean,
But then we
that seems
also
pretty
have to
solid.
explain David's blood because
Well, they
the
had the
ME
blood. They had
doesn't
his
mark
blood on
any.
his hand.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's no injuries besides the apparent head wound.
He probably did that
So,
after he shot himself in the head. Apparently,
Yeah,
he accidentally
that's right.
released his magazine.
He got the blood when he cut his scalp off. Those straight edges. I mean, there's straight and sharp angles on that skin piece. I'm sorry. So he took a sharp instrument and cut that off, and that's how he got the blood in his hand. And then he was messing with his gun. You're
Yeah,
right, William.
yeah. He
Did it after he was
totally scalped
wait,
himself and
was
everything.
that
And then
was
paleo
that
helped him.
before or
Yeah.
was that before or after his corpse moved on its own during the decomp process
After.
from the recliner to that position in the middle of the rug?
Yeah. As
It
far
was
as
in the
we know, he was
process.
sitting. His dead body was sitting in the chair and decided to get up and move, do a little
Oh
jig, and then
my
fell over.
gosh. I was laughing so hard. I was talking to Sophia. I was laughing. Oh my gosh! I literally was laughing my ass off when this was brought to my attention, where somebody said, "Well, the corpse move after death," and I'm like going, "What?" Okay, a body will contract
Right.
and relax during rigor. So yes, is there movement? Yes. It doesn't get up and fucking move 2 feet, okay? It doesn't twist positions. I'm like, oh my god, what an idiot.
Right.
This is during that live stream that we were doing on Wednesday, where this
Sorry, I'm
person
gonna mute myself.
was they were contradicting themselves because they were saying, well, the body moves. And then when Catherine's talking about the hands and the fingers on David, that person is like, well, no, you can't move those because they're stiff.
They'll turn to no, they'll crumble if you move them. And I'm like, no, they don't.
Oh jeez.
Oh my gosh.
I
That's
gotta mute
ridiculous.
myself again.
They're able to move mummies. They can adjust some of their bodies, but that's not the point. The point is this person has no clue what they're talking about, and yet they're talking with authority. And if you don't listen to them, they start screaming and threatening.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's
and
like,
doxing and all sorts of other things.
oh
It's ridiculous. It's a child.
yeah, that's just yeah.
That's what children
Nobody
do.
pays attention to that.
Well, I mean, some people do, and I don't understand why. It's
Not a whole lot though.
exactly. But that's the thing. It's just somebody that's gonna be loud and obnoxious about something. That's fine, but read the documents, please. Come at us with facts. Please come at us with science. These are things you need to go and bring to the table, or else hearsay is just going to be just dismissed. Nobody's going to care about hearsay. It's a hearsay, but we need to be going over things that are fact. Math, science, anything that can be helpful in this case. Yeah, bring it. If you really think David's guilty, then yeah, bring it. We'd love to see this. But bring proof. Don't just bring hearsay. You bring hearsay, that's when people just mute you and block you and all this. They're tired of hearing about it. People want to hear, okay, well, if David's guilty, what makes him guilty? There's nothing. That's just the easy answer there. There's nothing there. David is absolutely innocent.
Everything that we've mentioned has been assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
Assumptions by other people who did not know what actually happened.
Yep.
The police don't know what happened. They admit that.
Mm-hmm.
The ECU absolutely doesn't know what happened, but somebody created a fake document to try to pass it off as they did know.
Right.
To bolster their claim that David was guilty, which is not going to be good for them in the future.
Yep. Once it's found out who did that, that's going to be a lot of trouble right there. Is that's forging a document, especially a legal document, and yeah, good luck on that one. Whoever did that, you know.
There's actually a couple things that are being passed around that have the same quality as that AKA legal document, and that's all been sent off to Apple Valley to be verified. And I'm
really?
sure I will hear back, because if it's a fake document or another one, then they will do another affidavit. So.
Oh, now
They're
I'm
not
curious
going
as
to
to what this
ignore
is.
And I don't email things to them. I send it certified mail, so that they have to acknowledge that they have received the information.
Right.
Emails are too easy to ignore.
Absolutely. Can't blame you.
So.
Well,
Yep.
that is the close of the show. Fortunately, is I do start my new work schedule tomorrow. So where can people
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah.
And so where can
Thank
the
you.
audience find your guys' content at exactly? Just giving the floor and the mic to you guys right now.
Well, I'm on YouTube. It's just under Catherine Michelle. There are a lot of us though, but mine is like a blue picture. It's like a photo with a blue filter on it. But just look up Catherine Michelle, David Crowley or something. You'll be able to find me there. And also our group. You want to tell them where the group is, Sophia?
It's on Facebook, excuse me, and it's titled Justice for David Crowley and Family. And there is a website that is being run by our admin, Greg Fernandez Jr., and that is thegraystage.wordpress.com. And you could go there for all of the documents, all of the photos, all of our podcasts, and links to YouTube. So it's a great resource.
Absolutely.
And for those listening who need an actual link, I'm sure Will can look you up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys once again for joining me, and we will be back next weekend. I think I should be able to have some more stuff out for the Gray State stuff. So, but thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next weekend.